Dr. Jean-François Richer. I'm an assistant professor of 19th century French literature at the University of Calgary. I'm not here this morning so much to see, although I know there is a strong support for the cotutelle program at U of C. I'm here mostly to speak about my own experience as a PhD student between 1999 and 2004. To provide sort of first-person narrative, if you will, of what it's like to do a cotutelle. The only specialist of Balzac in Montreal was working at U of M, University of Montreal. In fact, I knew him. I liked him very much, for I had taken several of his courses, and I thought very highly of him. But then again, he was at U of M, where I did not want to go, not want to be in this, sitting in the same cafeteria, the same institution, hearing the same people. I was itching for novelty, but that's when Professor Vachon, that's his name, specialist of Balzac at U of M, suggested to me, hey, why don't you do a cotutelle? And to make it even more interesting, he said, why don't you apply for the one-year internship that we have with l'École Normale Supérieure de Lettres et Sciences Humaines de Lyon. So I applied for the cotutelle, I applied for the external, for the one-year internship, and I got accepted in both. A key element of doing a cotutelle is you really need a strong relationship between the two advisors. I think that's key. Scientific complementarities, even go as far as saying friendship between both advisors, is, in my opinion, a crucial element for the success of the cotutelle. My cotutelle was a success partly because my both advisors had collaborated before on a book. So there's a lot of prep work. You cannot launch yourself in a cotutelle just like that. You need to prepare it. You need to put it together. You need to assemble it. And that can be a bit daunting at first. It's sometimes difficult for PhD students to find an advisor. Now imagine the challenge of finding two, right? So how does it work? Well, for, I would say, 75 to 80% of the students involved in a cotutelle, you find advisor number 2 through advisor number 1. Another challenge is that there's a lot of administration involved in the cotutelle. So you must, throughout your cotutelle, communicate a lot via email, via mail, telephones with two institutions, two advisors, and that's just the reality of the process, including at the end of the process, providing several copies of your doctoral thesis. I was in humanities, again, I was studying Balzac, so we write, especially in Balzac studies, it's amazing how much people write. And I was no exception. My dissertation was over 700 pages, and I had to provide 16 copies of it, because both institutions wanted several copies to several offices, the graduate studies office, the every advisor, etc., etc. So basically a lot of printing to do at the end. Another question is, another challenge is you have to be ready to do some long-term planning, which as a PhD which as a student is not always easy, because you must plan ahead several years of your life in advance, as you have to determine early in the process of the cotutelle what semesters you will be spending in France and what semesters you will be spending in Canada. That has to be decided fairly early in the process. Because a cotutelle is, in many ways, an exercise in mobility. That's really what it is. Geographic, intellectual, emotional, cultural mobility. So if your PhD student is thinking of doing cotutelle, it bears the questions, how mobile are you? And how mobile are you ready to be in every sense of the word? Now, another challenge, of course, is funding. Funding is not so easy to get. An apartment in Paris doesn't come exactly cheap, and those plane tickets, they have to be paid for, right? So this is really something to think about. There are several opportunities out there. I myself was fortunate enough to receive the Bourse de Cotutelle, which is in Quebec is called the Bourse Frontenac, and which was a fantastic, fantastic scholarship. I was really privileged to receive that Bourse. Because when you receive it, you are taken care of by an institution in French, an administration called Égide, which has been around for 45 years in welcoming and taking care of foreign students in France, and they are professionals. It's fantastic to be under the tutelle of Égide. I think a successful cotutelle requires a very strong commitment to your doctoral studies. I mean, doing a PhD is a very big decision, one of the biggest decisions you make in your life. But doing one in cotutelle is even more serious because it involves that many more people. Now, the benefits. The benefits. Because there are many, many benefits to having done a cotutelle. The first one, I think, is having two mentors when you're in the early stage of your career, still looking to be in the early stage of your intellectual formation. Having two mentors is quite interesting and enriching, as they don't solve problems the same way, they don't think the same way, they don't use the same tools, use the same patterns from the same resources. So you learn a lot just by comparing different styles of solving problems. The other advantage is it allows you to build, that's what it did for me anyway, to build a broad network early in your career. So I'm still today working, speaking, and exchanging all sorts of communications with the networks that I developed for myself while I was in France, and the network that I developed while I was in Canada. And I'm still working with my counterparts and with my colleagues in both circles. So that's really useful. That's really interesting. Now, another benefit is I think the double diploma is also very interesting. It has certainly scientific value, for if you were able, as a young doctor, to convince two institutions and two sets of people to give you a PhD, well, it speaks of the quality of your research. So maybe the true value of having a double diploma lies right there. It just shows that you're not afraid to get out of your comfort zone, that you're somewhat adaptable, and in this current job market, being adaptable is not a bad card to have in your hand.